morning. A very warm welcome to one and all present here. I, Nandini Srivastav, student of DME Media School, welcome you all to the second edition of World's first 10-day digital live international conference ICANN, organized by DME Media School in collaboration with School of Communication and Creative Arts, Deakin University, Melbourne, Australia. We are happy to announce that ICANN Force is supported by Indian Council of Social Science Research, ICSSR. I would like to brief you all about previous editions of ICANN that were indeed successful. ICANN 1, held in March 2018, was based on the theme India and Changing Aspects of News. ICANN 2, held in November 2018, was all about Indian cinema and alternate network. And ICANN 3, the first online edition of the conference, was held in June 2020. And the theme was Issue of Community, Agenda and News with the hashtag Conference for Change. The theme for this year's conference is Information, Communication and Artificial Network, and the hashtag for the conference is Communication Redefined. There will be 36 live sessions, including 9 technical sessions, 3 workshops, 7 panel discussion, 3 special sessions, and 10 master classes. One of the most unique thing about ICANN 4 is that all 9 technical sessions are being chaired and co-chaired by Galaxy of Intellectual Women representing different states of the country. At DME Media School, we have our student body SPARK that stands for Student with Positive Attitude and Resonating Communication. We also have our official newsletter named Journalism at DME, a fortnightly publication that covers all the major activities happening in and out the campus. It is student-centric newsletter carried out entirely by them under the supervision of faculty members. I would like to thank our knowledge partners, K.R. Mangalam University, Gurugram, Haryana, and Mass University, Kolkata, Makhanlal Chaturvedi, National University of Journalism and Mass Communication, Bhopal, and Vigyan Prasar, Government of India. I would also like to thank our academic partners, Department of Communication and Journalism, Guwahati University, and our international partner, Institute for International Journalism, E.W. Scripps School of Journalism, Ohio University, USA. I would also like to thank the Policy Time as our media partner. I feel proud to announce that we are live on our official Facebook page. For more information, follow us on our social media handles. Links are being shared in the chat box. You can also check out DME TV, the official YouTube channel of DME, where you can find playlists related to all sessions, lecture series, film festival, and conference. Now, I would like to request Professor Dr. Amrit Saxena, Dean DME Media School, Director DME Studios and Production, Director International Relations, Delhi Metropolitan Education, Noida, to please say a few words. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Nandini. I welcome Professor K.G. Suresh this morning. Today is the 7th day of the international conference ICANN. And since day one, we have been continuously organizing panel discussions and master classes, workshops, and obviously the technical sessions, which is the core activity in a research-based conference. And Professor K.G. Suresh has been associated with ICANN right from the beginning. This is the 4th edition, but he was with us with the first edition only. And while he was the Director General of Indian Institute of Mass Communication. So that time, Indian Institute of Mass Communication was one of the partners of ICANN. Otherwise, also, whatever activities we conduct in the DME Media School, be it ICANN, be it CP International Film Festival, he's always there to support us. So it's a matter of pleasure that we are starting this morning with him. And he is a seasoned journalist. He is a media educator now. And the kind of grip that he has on journalism, which very rarely people have in this country. So that is how we have requested him to talk about the journalism, the changing dynamics of journalism, which has happened since the time COVID-19 struck last year, and what kind of impact these changes in journalism has made in the society. So we are looking forward a very lively and very encouraging session. So I stop here so that we have more time to listen to Professor KG Suresh. Over to you, Nandini.
Thank you, sir, for your wise words. Well, today's session is masterclass revolving around the theme changing dynamics of journalism and its impact on society in the wake of COVID-19. And our guest speaker is Mr. KG Suresh. Mr. KG Suresh has served as Director General of Indian Institute of Mass Communication IIMC, Dean School of Modern Media, University of Petroleum and Energy Studies, Dehradun. Senior Consultant Editor in DD News, Editorial Advice in Asia Net News Network, and Chief Political Correspondent in Press Trust of India. Professor Suresh is a member of Academic Council of Jawaharlal Nehru University, Society of Satyajit Ray Film and Television Institute, Kolkata, Research Committee of Indian Council Social Science Research, and a member of Advisory Council of the Delhi School of Journalism, Delhi University, Academic Council of Central University, Himachal Pradesh, member of School Board of Rabindranath Tagore School of Creative Arts and Communication Studies, Assam University. He is a member of Awards Selection Committee of the Indian Council for Science and Technology, Communication, Department of Science and Technology. He has been selected for prestigious award Ganesh Shankar Vidyarthi Saman for outstanding contribution to journalism this year. And the award will be presented by the President of India. Now, I hand over the forum to Mr. KG Suresh. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Nandini, for that short and sweet introduction. Otherwise, it goes on and on. I'm always worried whenever I go for sessions because introductions take away half of your time. Always a pleasure to be back at DME. Great to see my dear friend and I would say fellow journalist, fellow academician, Dr. Ambrish Saxena, who has been setting new benchmarks in media education. Again, another friend, Dr. Sushmita Bala. I also see some of my former colleagues, including Dr. Krishna. I also see all esteemed faculty members of, Delhi Metropolitan Education, an institution with which I have been associated for a pretty long time now in various capacities. And immediately after this session, I will be associated in a different new capacity altogether. So always a pleasure being there. And I have known Ambrish ji since his days at IP University. And, we have worked, of course, I've known him even when he was in media, but we have worked together. We have very close, circle of friends. And so always a pleasure. And DME has been doing exceptionally well. And ICANN has become a must-attend platform for all media educators. It's a must-attend event in the annual calendar of, I think all of media education, because he brings on the table, media faculty from across the world with all their vast experiences. And this is something that in India, we all look forward to. So congratulations to DME, the management of DME and the faculty for organizing this wonderful events. As Dr. Saxena mentioned, since my days as IIMC DG, we have been associated, and this time also we are a knowledge partner, the Makhanlal Chaturvedi National University of Journalism. I've been given a topic, perhaps some of you may think that this is a topic which media schools across the country have discussed ad nauseum, COVID and pandemic, but this is not the topic. The topic is changing dynamics of journalism and its impact on society in the wake of COVID-19. Based on my own over 3 decades of experience as a journalist and as a media educator, I would like to share some thoughts here with me. I'm sure most of you are highly qualified and experienced, and perhaps you would be having better ideas, but I thought that I should, discuss some of the relevant points which I think are now becoming very clearly visible. The changes that I see in the media scape, so to say, in the country. Now, I don't want to get into statistics. That is one thing I avoid. One, statistics keeps changing with every reference, with every, and secondly, they are easily available on Google. So, I don't want to engage in a statistical exercise here. I want to focus on the brass tacks, so to say. So to begin with, please remember that there is a big impact in the sense that we have seen infodemic in a big way. This has caused a lot of problems, not just in India, but across the globe. And from the United Nations Secretary General to the UNESCO Director General, the world over, people have raised their serious concerns about this overdose of information, and primarily attributed to digital media, social media, as a result of which, it has always been there. Misinformation, disinformation, fake narratives, fake content, but the kind of proportions that it has assumed is immense, and it is directly having an impact on individual health. Now, that is the biggest concerns. There have always been, we right from the Goebbelsian propaganda, during, Nazi Germany, to, we have been hearing about propaganda and all that stuff. Psy-wars, psychological warfare, which during the Cold War, we saw at its peak between the United States and the USSR, the Soviet Union. And we keep seeing that keeps happening all around. But what is, much more important here is that most of them were political in nature, ideological in nature, with a specific agenda, or even economic. But the biggest change that is seen is that most of this fake content, misinformation, disinformation is related to public health. Now, that has led to serious concerns. Let me give you an example. Last week, in the last Sunday, every month, you have the Prime Minister, talking about, his Man Ki Baat program is there. The proportion, the seriousness of the issue can be gauged from the fact that the Prime Minister spoke to a villager in my own state of Madhya Pradesh, in Betul district. And he was surprised that the villager was saying that he did not vaccinate himself, and many villagers were not vaccinating. Now, this is because of concerns which have been discussed extensively in social media, and as a result of which there is a vaccination hesitancy. Now, I am a personal witness to this during the polio, the Pulse Polio campaign. As a member of the World Health Organization Communication Review Panel, there were very strong, pockets in Western Uttar Pradesh, in Hooghly, in Bengal, where you had polio resistance, and these were aided and abetted even by the local media. Now, and I'm talking not about At that time, there was not much impact of social media or anything like that. I'm talking about print media, language media, which were spreading gossip, rumors, and the same kind of things are now being, spread uh, about this vaccine also. And please remember that this is not confined to semi-literate or, illiterate population. The other day, I was listening to a leading doctor from Bangalore, and he was mentioning that in his upmarket hospital in Bangalore, Bangalore's Whitefield, you had affluent, people, residents all around, and they were not getting themselves vaccinated. I know of journalist friends who have not got themselves vaccinated. All kinds of theories are there. And in this scenario, all kinds of rumors are flying thick, about its efficacy. You had stories about how, quoting a Nobel laureate, how within 2 years of the vaccination, you will die, and all that stuff, which was going viral, Now, this is a disinformation in which, because we are talking about the impact of media, what we see. Now, this is a result, I would say, the massive propaganda by a deliberate anti-vaccinator lobby, and also people who are doing it out of mischief, and many people who are doing it out of ignorance. So all kinds of people are there. Now, the result is that vaccine resistance is there, and that's not just impacting the patients, the individuals, but also because they are not getting themselves vaccinated, they are impacting their neighbors, they are impacting their villagers, their fellow residents in cities. So this is going to have an impact. So on the one side, you have a vaccine shortage, what we say that in many parts, vaccines are not available. On the other hand, you also see a hesitancy for vaccination. So much so that, even the Prime Minister had to speak to the villagers in his Mann Ki Baat. So this is a global concern. Now, there are two things which come out of this. And one is positive and the other is negative. The negative story is that, obviously it is wreaking havoc with the health of the people at large. And the positive story here and positive trend in journalism is that for the first time in post-independent history, if I may say so, media is now focusing on health and education as never before. I look at it as a ray of hope. We have always been complaining that health is only when there is a scam, there is a national health mission, rural health mission scam or something like that. If there is a big scam, or there is a problem in Medical Council of India, or if there is any, anything, a kidney racket or something like that. Otherwise, health has always been the last priority. Except few established newspapers, media houses, health is something that has never been given importance. Because I have always been very passionate about this subject, because during my tenure as Director General at IIMC, we, along with Thomson Reuters Foundation and the Oxford University and UNICEF India, designed India's first critical appraisal skills program in public health communication. Dr. Krishna Pandey is here. She was very much part of that. And we implemented it. We trained our faculty. We trained, our students. We made it a part of our curriculum. And not only that, we trained health journalists from leading newspapers, including Amar Ujala, Dainik Jagran, Dainik Bhaskar, institutions such as Manu in Hyderabad. This has been an ongoing process, critical appraisal skills program, and the entire focus was on evidence-based reporting. That was always the. Now, there is an increasing awareness about health. People are concerned. Now, this is the biggest thing. It has not come as an initiative from the media. It is a result of people's enhanced interest in health related reporting, because in the aftermath of the infodemic, people are looking for reliable health related content. They want credible information, trustworthy information. So they are looking for, so a large number of media houses are now, you would see, if you look at the content, if it was 80, other content and 20 health, even 20 is too much. Today it is the other way around. I mean, in fact, if you pick up the paper right from front page to the inside city pages, it's all about health facilities, the state of, I mean, even they are going to the villages, they are going and getting reporting. I'll come to that. So about the state of primary health centers, the facilities, the infrastructure available, the availability of medicine, you discuss, every television channel is a day in and day out discussing the impact of plasma therapy, black fungus, white fungus. You have never seen, I mean, there were many channels which never had a health program, except the ones for which I and Amrish ji worked for, that is Doordarshan, good old Doordarshan. Only we had a health program. Earlier health program, I mean, other channels never had health programs, health discussion. But today in channels, you only see health programs, health related queries, health related discussions. I see this as a positive impact. While infodemic is negative, this is a positive trend that you see in journalism, which has a direct impact on the society. People are becoming increasingly aware of health issues. They're concerned about their fitness. They are concerned. In fact, to the extent that, I mean, in fact, I was reading this, joke, which was widely circulated, that this man starts his day with juices and kadas and, with all the vitamins and the capsules. And then towards the end, he gave the entire list of things that he would take: hot water, this, that. So much so that at the end of the day, somebody asked him, "Ki kya amar banne ka irada hai kya?" That is, are you going to become immortal, by taking these foods? So this is the kind of preventive people are into yoga, into, so there is a greater awareness about health issues. This is a very important impact on the society, which I see. Another impact that I see is that with the closure of schools, colleges, educational institutions, which have impacted almost all of us in one way or the other, the onset of online education in a big way. Education is an area where there is so much of focus. Have you ever heard in the last, 50 plus years, I can only remember that much because that is my age group. So, have you remember an occasion when the Prime Minister chairs a meeting on a CBSE examination? Now, whether the CBSE examination should be conducted or not. Now, this is the kind of importance suddenly education has acquired. In between, the national education policy came in between. So COVID times, the focus on education, we have always been talking that in this country, so many commissions have recommended 6% allocation of GDP to higher education, of education. And we have been lamenting it has never been. The NEP proposes that. But the coverage of education was not even 6%. And today it is 30 to 40%. Today, every educational activity, whether exams, what will happen to the future of the students, what happens to them. The digital divide that we all talk about, it is occupying so much of space. Online education. For the last consecutive 3 days, I've been watching on different channels how people are going to the edge of the village near the, telecom towers to get signal. They are climbing up mountains to get signal, and that's the challenge that they are facing. So you are not just, and these people are having smartphones, but in their area there is an limited accessibility to internet. So what happens there? So there are these issues. So gadget is an issue, internet accessibility is an issue. There are media stories that I see which talk about how after migration you have students who have who had to drop out of school education, particularly girl children. They'd never, hope to go back to school. These are tragic stories, which is the result of this online, because they don't have the gadgets, they don't have the wherewithal. So the best thing they have opted for is that they have gone back to the agricultural farms. Now, it is being talked about. It is being discussed. So I see this emphasis on education, on health, as, the impact of COVID-19 on journalism, and its impact on society. Because the more awareness that we get to know about, education, I think that enlightens us further, makes us aware of the challenges before education, prepares the youngsters for the future. What are the challenges that are available? So all kinds of these stories are, there. Now, this is, one can go on and on this subject. A very important aspect of, journalism that I have seen, I'll come to, because generally in discussions, I find that, you discuss only technological changes. I will come to that. That is also important. But for me, I have always said, and I say that, irrespective of technological changes, content is, and content will always remain the king, queen, prince, princess, whatever you call it. Content will always have the importance. And I am talking about content, how content-wise changes have taken place. Because technological changes, yes, they are taking place. But in terms of content, how we are looking at the trends that we see. An important aspect is, what I see is, investigative journalism. It has made a comeback. I'm really happy to see so many media platforms, media houses, particularly language media, newspapers like the Bhaskar. I have no preference for any particular paper, but I'm just saying, the way they have been ferreting out data, they have been going deep into statistics provided by state governments, district authorities with regard to death, casualty, and all those figures, even with regard to vaccination figures, everything. People are going deep into them and trying to get and as a result, what has happened over the last few weeks, you have seen many state governments revising their data with regard to the deaths in COVID. And there, of course, they have their own reasons to quote, including that, they could not reconcile the state, district level data with the state level data and stuff like that. And it takes time because of technological handicaps and stuff like that. But the fact is that, channels have been, kind of doing a lot of this stuff, wherein, data journalism is being extensively used. Even government data is not being, blindly trusted, whether it is state governments or central government or anything. They are further going deep, citing several other data, matching data. So there's a data analytics which is going on. Now, this is something which I believe is very critical and which is very important. It's going to gain salience in the coming days. This is something that we should look forward to. Another trend that I find very interesting, because we are talking about changing dynamics of journalism, is that there is a going back to the roots kind of, feeling that I get. We have all been saying that, now we are into the era of desktop journalism. Google search, I used to say that Google search has replaced ground reporting, so there is no research that's happening. Now, what I see is that today media is going back to the ground. You will see the senior most journalists going back to villages, and the rural areas has once again, started hogging the limelight. Earlier, I can quote so many statistics, including the famous quote by P. Sainath in his Everyone Loves a Good Drought, wherein he says that to cover the, uh, farmer suicides in Vidarbha, you had just a handful of, accredited correspondents, as against the hundreds of correspondents who had queued up to cover the Lakme India Fashion Week in Mumbai. So those were the days. But today you see a radical change. Because today you see a lot of people going back to the villages, trying to find out how the reverse migration, from the urban to the rural, how it has impacted the local society, economics of the society, how what is the state of employment generation, what is the state of public health in the rural areas. These things are today being covered extensively, as against the earlier thing of covering a village only when there is a farmer suicide or there is a protest or some accident. Otherwise, so our priorities were different. The priorities are changing now. So you would see more of developmental journalism. I mean, something that has prompted me, an educationist like me, to start a rural journalism program from my Riva campus in Madhya Pradesh. So from this year, we are launching the rural journalism program, because when I see trends happening, I immediately implement it. And that is where I'm coming to the next trend that I see. So rural journalism is gaining salience. Today, more and more people are reading, watching, and listening to news and content in their respective languages. Now, languages are growing, and this is a trend that has been visible for pretty long now. You have more and more media houses who are launching language channels, language newspapers, and that is something that you find is very interesting in this entire thing. Language, and perhaps again, that is a trend which I started seeing very visibly in during my tenure at IMC, and when we launched, the Marathi journalism program from our Amravati campus, the Malayalam journalism program from our Kerala campus, and the upgraded the Urdu into a full-fledged postgraduate diploma program. So because we felt that there is a growing, growing market for language. So today your language skills, if you are multi-skilled, that includes language skills. If you are equally good, today employability depends to some extent, on your language ability, your linguistic ability. So if you are a linguist, or if you can talk 2-3 languages fluently, if you have command, you stand a better chance for a job in a media platform as against a unidimensional approach. So language skills. So language is something that is clearly, even during this pandemic, we saw more and more platforms coming in the languages. That is something very important, that trend that we need to see. I also want to point out that, as I said, because of concern about health, fitness, and stuff like that, somehow I find, and this is a result of the societal demand, people have become more conscious about, as a result of this pandemic, life has become much more uncertain for people. Of course, it has a psychological impact. But in terms of media and consumption, how I see it is that people who had a unidimensional approach to life, if they are interested in politics, they are only interested in politics. If they are interested in cinema, they are only interested in cinema. But today, they feel that pata nahi kab tak hai yaar zindagi. So far, so good. अभी तक तो कोरोना से बच के रहा. अब बाकी जो लाइफ है, थोड़ा और अपने को बैलेंस चलना. People prefer to be with their families more today. People are spending quality time. Their entertainment or news consumption patterns have changed. because they are no more taking life very casually as they used to take. Life has suddenly become very precious, which needs to be preserved and nurtured. Suddenly, people are finding time for their families. Those small moments, are they are finding to cherish. That, well, ज़्यादा कुछ रखा नहीं है, जब तक हैं खुश रहो, मस्त रहो. That is the kind of approach suddenly people have started happening. किसके पीछे पड़े, किस रेस में पड़े हैं, छोड़ो, अपने को लाइफ में और भी चीजें. I know of journalist friends who have lived all their lives in metro cities, and suddenly they say ki, I mean, we are okay going back to our towns. We are going back to our. Only yesterday I met a journalist who said that enough, my wife is somewhere working somewhere else, my parents are somewhere else, let me go back. I want to be with them. Can you help me in exploring some job opportunities in Bhopal, wherein I can bring my family and we can live together. Suddenly a sense of insecurity of, people are looking for comfort zones, and that is impacted education also, in the sense that today, for example, I mean, I am getting more of students from my neighborhood rather than other states, because people are preferring to send their kids to nearby schools and colleges rather than in distance. So in a way, the students in my neighborhood who used to go to different places across the country are today coming to my college. And on the other hand, students who used to come from different colleges, I mean, different states, are now preferring to go to their own respective states rather than coming to my college. Now, this is a change that is seen, in sense of insecurity. Now, this has resulted in changed consumption pattern. People are looking for customized content with regard to their requirement, whether it is entertainment, whether it is spirituality, whether it is, travelogues. People think that, I need to listen to what I want. Now, that is a driving. So it's no more about talking about everything. It's about, and that is where technology is coming to play. And that is where artificial intelligence is playing a big role. Now, using AI technologies, you find today there is an effort to provide customized content to the readers. In my inaugural address at the ICANN, I spoke about some of the technology like Cyborg, which is being used by even transnationals, including Bloomberg. And also I referred to my weekly edition, published by the New York Times for, readers of New York Times who want customized content. They are all AI driven. Now, so AI is being extensively used. And that is having an impact on in the society, in the sense that people are now getting content which they want to read and see, watch. And on the other, you also have, content which is being offered to you as alternative content, which can give you, new information, information which is more, relevant to you. And here comes a very important thing. Video consumption obviously has been growing in this country, and it has only grown by what is happening is that every media house is today focusing a lot on video content. Even digital platforms, text content, which has primarily focused on text, is now focusing on videos. Now, as a result of this, the impact is that today even the illiterate and semi-literate are getting exposed to a variety of content thanks to video content, for which they don't need language skills. They only have to listen to, watch, so they don't need to read. So it has led to, I would say, democratization of the consumption patterns. So earlier, consumption of news was confined to people who have, who can read newspapers, or who have the ability to have a television set with a cable connection at home or a DTH connection at home. Today, anybody having a smartphone is having access to this high quality content. And that has led to both one, awareness on the one hand on different issues, and on the other, infodemic. They are also becoming victims of fake content, misinformation, disinformation. For that, we need a media literacy mission at the national level. We need to inculcate right from the a school curriculum. We need to inculcate that, because there is a growing exposure right from school children. We used to prohibit them from having mobile phones. In the classrooms, we used to ban mobile phones. Today, we are encouraging them to use mobile phones. It's having impact on this media consumption, that is also media, online. This media consumption is impacting not only their physical health, their psychological health, their social health. I have seen children in my own family, immediate family, my relatives, children who used to be very active players, very active dancers, very active artists, have got hooked to smartphones and laptops like anything. And today they prefer to spend all their time at home with their gadgets rather than go out and play, because we stopped them from playing outside because of corona. And they have got so much used to it that today they have got addicted. I think the day is not far. We used to hear about boot camps in Korea, de-addiction camps, to de-addiction, not for drugs, but for mobile de-addiction. I used to hear that in the United States, NRIs would go for a Sunday vrat, and vrat is not about food. Vrat is a mobile phone vrat, where they won't use the mobile phones. That kind of fasting that they won't use one day free of mobile phones. That is something that they would say. Now, this exposure is impacting the society, because you are not just getting school curriculum content, but you are also getting a lot of cyberbullying, a lot of pornography, a lot of other stuff, which are really harmful for the physical and psychological health of the children. Are they ready for that? So, is parental guidance possible? To what extent, when the internet is accessible? Now, that is something as a society we have to ponder over. We need to look at. Now, because there is the dark net, which is there, let us face it. So, now technology, lastly, couple of just points. I think I need to speak till 11 o'clock. So I'll try to wind up. Technologically, mobile journalism is something that I see has advanced like never before. And this COVID-19 has only accelerated it. I would say it has accelerated, technology has been accelerated the way demonetization accelerated digital payments in this country. I mean, till few years, it was unthinkable that you will have Panwala will have a Paytm, account. So today you have a QR code outside every pawn shop, and you can give if you don't have chiller, you can always, give him 10 rupees or 20 rupees through Paytm. Now, this was unthinkable few years back. Today, thanks to COVID-19, in a way, we are making payments, no cashless payments, more and more cashless payments, even when we get a Domino's pizza at home, when there is a home delivery. So this is a result of that technology. Now, why I'm mentioning this is that, we are looking at a scenario where, I mean, now in the next few days, you will get to see the Rath Yatra in Puri. I remember last year vividly how a very few people were allowed entry into because of the COVID situation. And around those grand three Raths of Bhagwan Jagannath, Balabhadra and Subhadra, I could see small drones of television channels which were hovering around those, chariots, and they were covering live the Rath Yatra for the benefit of the devotees. Now, how technology, which is very simple technology, but it can have vast potential. I mean, you see in marriage parties, drones being hovering around you over the baratis. And you also see drones which were used to attack, in Jammu, a terror attack was carried out. The same drone technology can be used extensively. And during this COVID period, the containment zones, the isolation zones, all these were covered by a lot many channels using drone technology. Now, this is how technologically drones, more and more gadgets are being used. As I said, mobile journalism, Mojo. Mojo has gained, because they found it really difficult to send camera people to different parts. So stringers who had mobile phones, smartphones, I mean, there are many examples of how channels utilize the services of freelance journalists. My own students at my university, I mean, they use mobile phones. I mean, recently we had an MP Maha vaccination day where, a call given by our chief minister. Our state made a record of sorts of, getting 15 lakh people vaccinated on one day, single day. Now, I remember that we also wanted to contribute to that. And within few hours, my students produced 200 videos promoting vaccinations. And some of those videos were tweeted by the chief minister himself. They were so good, and they were produced from local areas by my students using their, smartphones. They were so creative. So Mojo has arrived following this pandemic, because the entire online education, the teaching, even in electronic media classrooms, the studios, the editing, everything was done on, mobile phones. As a result, during this entire period, you also see a massive rise in YouTube, on YouTube platforms. And of course, during this period, we also saw how apps like many Chinese apps, including TikTok, were banned. And then it led to a lot more focus on YouTube. And YouTube, I mean, every second person has a YouTube account, and they are putting out stories. They are putting out, beautiful stories, very interesting stories. Yesterday, also, one of my students from IMC came to meet me in Bhopal, and he told me that, he runs a YouTube channel along with his job, and it talks about current issues and how it is growing. People are now engaged with that channel. So everybody talks passionately about, YouTube, because people got a lot of time to be at home and they were unable to do much. They were not able to go out. So they went for these YouTube channels. Friends, I stick to my deadline always, having been a television journalist. We are used to even, read out a 5-minute news bulletin, so to cut short, I know that there are still many aspects which one can throw light upon, but I would be happy to discuss these in the Q&A that would follow. But for the time being, I would say that, for me, yes, technological changes, yes, AI. And let me tell you that, the day more and more technology comes in, Indian media platforms will be quick to adopt them. They are not going to be too concerned about the human aspect, about employment opportunities, because even COVID period, you saw a lot of layoffs, a lot of people losing their jobs, as a result. So technology would be adopted, but it is for us in media schools to equip our students for the new age journalism. Are they multi-skilled? Are they multitaskers? Can we prepare them to face the onslaught of technology, which is changing with every passing day? That is the biggest challenge before us. But with that rider, that technological upgradation and technological skills alone won't do. Yes, podcasts, Mojo, you talk about it, and I mean, there are n number of platforms, n number of new technologies coming up, but content will always be the king, queen, prince, princess. So we have to focus a lot on content, and content is not just about customization. Content is also about social issues. Content is also about, talking about the underprivileged, the downtrodden, the marginalized. Content is also about ensuring that media continues to be the voice of the voiceless. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. I am sure this was thoroughly an eye-opening session for all the spectators. Now, I would like to invite Miss Krishna Pandey, Assistant Professor, DME Media School, to moderate the question answer session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Nandini. Thank you so much. Sir, it's always been a pleasure to hear you, and we look forward to more such sessions. Um I have many questions, in fact, but due to paucity of time, I'll just take few. One of the questions that have been sent to me is by one of my colleagues, Mr. Sumantra Sathi Das, who is Assistant Professor, DME Media School, and he wants to find out that with so many reforms taking place and initiatives taking place by the government, it is quite clear that India wants to move forward now. But his question is that whether media is doing its responsibility towards development of the country or not. He says because there are a lot of media, including foreign media, which is constantly going against Indian government and which gives a very bad impression about the government and the country in front of the international audience. So he's questioning the role of media per se.
Okay, Sumant, I think that I am somebody who feels that we should not be really too much worried about what the foreign press is saying. They have always been biased. The colonial hangover has always been there. They used to project us as a land of serpents and snake charmers, and they have got a certain stereotyped image about India. But we have to be more concerned about how we do our work back home. Our media should be, how we are going to. I don't think the Americans are bothered about how the Indian media reports America. I think they are least bothered. So let's not be. Yes, it's a matter of concern that there is a, certainly there is an effort by some vested interests also to promote or to portray India in a negative light. But I think that we should be more bothered about our own, putting our house in order. And I think that today Indian media is by and large, exceptions are always there. As I said, the focus is on public health, the focus is on, and so far as sensationalism, TRP, these are concerned, let us face it. We are in a scenario where the corporate media houses are doing it. So I don't have much expectations from them. Yes, with passing time, with increasing awareness among the readership and the viewership, there will be slight changes, yes. But I am looking at hope, with a lot of hope, on independent media, individuals and independent media platforms, which are funded by the people at large. Today, I think people are increasingly becoming conscious about, funding independent media. I mean, if we can subscribe to Netflix paying hundreds of rupees, if we can go to, cinemas and pay 400 rupees for a packet of popcorn, I'm sure we should be ready to shell out few rupees for getting independent news also. That is also, we need to, to expect that we will pay only 3 rupees for a newspaper whose production costs 30 rupees and 27 is sponsored by the corporates, the advertisements, governments, and we expect them to be independent and impartial and objective. I think we are also, expecting too much. So let us accept the hard economics, the harsh realities, and let us support independent media initiatives.
So adding to this, there's another question from one of the students who wants to ask you that there is always a growing interference from the government side into the functioning of media, raising questions on the freedom of speech and expression. What do you have to say on that?
I don't know. I think that governments and media have always had an adversarial relationship. On June 25th, we commemorated the anniversary of emergency. Ambrish ji perhaps was also, we both were, I think, youngsters at that time. And, and we have seen, how the media was muzzled. The chief censor used to decide what should go in a newspaper and what shouldn't. Hundreds of media people were put behind the bars. So media has always been at the receiving end. So it's not something new that you see. Certainly governments, so there have been worse situations from the British time to emergency that Indian media has faced. But there have also been occasions when media has compromised. Mr. L.K. Advani, the then Information and Broadcasting Minister in the Morarji Desai government, had famously said that during the emergency, when media was asked to bend, they crawled, So, so media also has compromised over the years. Now it is for us to see whether when they are being asked to bend, are they crawling? That is a question that we also need to ask. That, but this will continue. It is up to the media also to take the challenge. If in pursuit of their corporate interests, if in pursuit of their, monetary profiteering, if they are going to compromise on journalistic values, then the credibility of the media goes for a toss. I think that if they are true to their profession, I think they should also stand their ground. And this adversarial relationship has always been there, and it is not something new. And but I have seen worse faces, and I have studied about worst faces in the country's media history. So this is not, something, an accusation that is new. Yes.
Sir, Pramod Kumar Pandey, Assistant Professor with DME Media School, he wants to ask you this question. Journalism for quite some time has seen its transformation into press release journalism. The current state of underemployment in the media, especially in the print, poses threat of further accentuation of press release journalism due to lack of field reporters. So what are your views on that?
Well, as I said, that at least during the COVID, I have seen more of ground reportage and from a lot of independent journalists. I agree that, today, because of COVID, a lot of journalists have lost their livelihoods. That's a reality. But let us also remember that new platforms are coming up, and they are looking for people with a lot of adaptability. I remember the times when a lot of, when we have worked in manual, form. We have worked in typewriters. I still have an old typewriter with me in which I used to write and send articles. So we used to have those Remingtons. So from Remingtons to, MacBook has been a great transformation. So I think that journalists should also be more flexible, adaptable to change. They should reinvent themselves. Media and media persons should keep reinventing themselves. Only that can ensure survivability and success of both media and media persons.
So one last question. This is from Ms. Mudita Raj, again another colleague of mine. She's assistant professor at DMA Media School. And she's saying that in an economy where news has become a commodity, how do you see journalists justifying principles and responsibilities of being a journalist?
Well, as I said, that with the infodemic, and that I look at it as a blessing in disguise. People have generally not valued much, but with infodemic, people have started looking for credible information. And that is again a trend, bucking the global trend. In India, the print media has survived. And not only survived, it is also growing. Of course, it is growing at an estimated 3.6%, as against the 36% growth projected for digital media. No doubt, but still 3.6% growth. advertisements revenue, the projected advertisement budget, 41% goes to electronic media, 28% goes to digital media, and even today 25% of the advertisement budget goes to print media. Now, therein lies the hope of the strong editorial processes, the strong filtration processes, the processes of checking, cross-checking, verifying, cross-verifying, which is available for media person. So people are now looking for verified content. People are looking for now reliable content, trustworthy content. And I think that will take care of the issue that you have mentioned, in the future. The people's, it has to come from people, at the end of the day, people are asking for public health. So you will gradually, you will, be forced. When it comes from the people, you will have no option as a media platform, but to offer public health communication if the demand is coming from the public.
Thank you so much, sir. Over to you, Nandini, now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, I would like to request Professor Dr. Ambrish Saxena, Dean DME Media School, convener ICANN4, to give the concluding remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Nandini. So, as usual, it was a very enlightening session, and Professor KG Suresh has touched upon so diverse aspect of today's journalism. Obviously, this is a, very long-lasting thing. There's an ongoing debate. There is no conclusion to whatever is being discussed. Journalism is a very dynamic field, and it changes every moment. Every moment something new is, that's the beauty of the profession. Every moment something new is happening, and those who love this, they only become the journalists. So it's not a static thing. Every equation changes, every information changes, every interpretation changes, and we must keep on debating. Continuous debate is the crux, but then obviously we have to debate, we have to discuss anything with an open mind. Without taking sides, without any prejudices. We should look at any development on the ground with all merits and demerits, and then we should try to understand anything. This is particularly more important for the budding journalists, for the students, so that they are open to all kind of thoughts, open to all kind of ideologies, and one should always try to develop his or her mind to understand the things in the right light, in the right earnest. So I believe many of the misconceptions would have been removed about journalism in the minds of the students, particularly, I say. And then we should look at journalism as a profession and its impact on the society, because whatever happens in journalism, that is bound to make an impact on the society. Like, journalism is a great service to the society if it is practiced honestly. So I believe all those things would have become more clear in the minds of the budding journalists. And that is, in fact, the success of this kind of lecture delivered by a stalwart of the profession. So I thank you, Professor Suresh, for this. Over to you, Nandini.
Thank you so much, sir. I would like to extend my gratitude to Mr. KG Suresh for this wonderful session. I would like to extend my gratitude to Professor Dr. Ambrish Saxena, Dean DME Media School, convener ICANN4, and Professor Dr. Susmita Bala, Head DME Media School, Chief Associate Convener ICANN4, for the ideation and planning of all the sessions. I would like to thank Dr. Manasvi Maheshwari, Ms. Manmeet Kaur, Ms. Shruti B.S., Mr. Mohit Kishore Vats, Ms. Mudita Raj, and Mr. Pramod Kumar Pandey for their constant support and guidance. A heartfelt thanks to Mr. Ritvik Ghosh, Mr. Sumantra Sarthidas, Mr. Sachin Nair, Mr. Yogesh Sharma for managing the overall digital operation in ICANN4. I would like to thank our newsletter team, comprising of both student and faculty member, namely Ms. Sukriti Arora and Dr. Tina Bora, for constantly supervising and mentoring everyone. And I also thank Mr. Muhammad Kamil and Ms. Krishna Pandey for working around the clock in all the press proceedings. You can keep check on our press proceeding on the official Facebook page of ICANN. I would also like to thank Mr. Anmol Mehta from our DME family and Mr. Sumohit Nirala from one of our knowledge partner, KR Mangalam University, and for tirelessly working in making our event look more beautifully digital, so with the help of their amazing designs. I would also like to thank our entire team, all faculty members and students who have worked day and night facing all the challenges and obstacles of the pandemic to make this conference happen. Lastly, I want to thank all the participants who joined this session and our audience for being here and contributing. Dear participants, I request you to take a look to the feedback form through the link provided in the chat box. Your every feedback matters to us. Follow us on our social media handles for more information and updates. Do not forget to visit DME website and ICANN4 website for all details. Moreover, stay tuned for the upcoming sessions. We'll have sixth technical session on the topic integrated marketing communication in the era of social media and all by Dr. Sapna MS at 11:30 a.m. IST. Then there is another masterclass planned on communication technologies for effective transmission of media message by Professor Ranjit Sharma at 3 p.m. IST. And the final session for today is workshop on emerging technology in journalism, 36-degree virtual reality, storytelling, practice and approval by Dr. Aaron Atlas, Assistant Professor, Weber State University, USA at 6:30 p.m. See you all there. Till then, I, Nandini Srivastava, take your leave. Have a great day.